So, hello everyone. My name is Richard Gabon, and I'm here today to present two concepts of communication: language and dialect. Next slide, please. Language versus dialect. So let's first define what language is. Next slide, please. According to Merriam-Webster dictionary, language is the words, their pronunciation, and the methods of combining them used and understood by the people of a country or community. It can either be oral, written, or both. Next slide, please. On the other hand, the said dictionary defines dialect as a regional variety of language that are distinguished by grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary. It has a distinct vocabulary and may have its own grammatical form. Now, with those definitions mentioned, how exactly language and dialect is different from each other? Something that needs to be remembered when differentiating the two is the origin. Language is the umbrella used to describe a communication system that uses a set of words and a specific method to combine them. And under this is the dialect. It is sometimes viewed as subset or type of particular language. Next slide, please. So in the Philippines, the Philippine language is considered as the national language of the country. Since it has different regions, there are also different dialects that could be heard from different people. One of these is Tagalog. It is a dialect spoken in different areas in the Philippines, and it also has several sub-dialects, such as Tagalog Laguna and Tagalog Batangas. Next slide, please. To conclude, there is no really a clear answer on how differentiate the two. As some language are defined as dialect, while some dialects seem to have all aspect to be considered a language. This makes the human language and communication beautiful and diverse. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kara Angeli Biran, and for today we're going to discuss about fluency versus accuracy in terms of speech communication. But first, let us define accuracy. Accuracy is the quality or state of being correct or precise. It means when you are speaking a certain language, your vocabulary or pronunciation of that certain language is precise. Next is fluency. Fluency is the quality or state of being fluent. So, what does being fluent mean? Being fluent means being capable of using a language easily and accurately, and being able to speak or write a foreign language easily and accurately. So, what is the difference between fluency and accuracy? First is fluency. Fluency is the flow and efficiency which you express your ideas, particularly when speaking. A few grammatical mistakes may appear here and there when explaining, but it should be delivered in a way that is easy to understand and shows how comfortable you are with the language. So if you speak English fluently, it means you speak it easily, quickly, and without pauses. That way, when you explain your topic or prove your point, it it uh, it it will become smooth, clear, and concise without many hesitations. Next is accuracy. Accuracy, on the other hand, it demonstrates your ability to use the necessary vocabulary, grammar, and punctuations correctly. So if you speak English with a high level of accuracy, it means you speak it correctly with very few mistakes. Accuracy refers to how correct learners use the language. And for fluency, it refers to how well a learner communicates using a certain language.
The key to understand the thoughts and ideas of one person is communication. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Juan Carlos C. Flor de Lis, taking Bachelor of Science in Tourism Management, first year student. Moving on, communicative competence. So, what does it mean? Communicative competence is all about the ability to construct a sentence more sensible and in understandable way. In this part, we won't be only focusing on on speech, but we're also focusing on narrative or in writing. In this part, we have four components. These are linguistic, strategic, social linguistic, and yeah. Next, linguistic, the ability to create grammatically correct utterances. What do we mean by utterances? Utterances means the statement we make and how we execute a word in a sentence. So in this part, we have three components: vocabulary, language conventions, and sentence. Just like what I have said earlier, we won't be only focusing in speech, but rather narrative. Vocabulary. Vocabulary consists of words, whether if it's basic or unfamiliar words. Language conventions. This will be used in sentence like punctuations, grammar, capitalization, or any other component in a sentence that will be. And last is sentence. In sentence, there is a subject and predicate. The subject is the main idea of the sentence or the statement we execute to the person whom we are talking to. And the predicate is the only supporting detail we only execute to the person we also talking to. So next, please. Strategic, the ability to solve communications as they arise. In this part, we have four components: overcome language gaps, plan and assess the effectiveness of communication, achieve conversational fluency, and modify text for audience and purpose. First is overcome language gaps. In this part, this will be, I think, the language barrier between the person to person thing. For example, a language English speaker and a Spanish speaker. So in order to understand each other, a person has to adjust or to understand what the other person is talking about. Um, I think the best language to be used in this part is English, because English is the international language that is used all over the world. Plan and assess the effectiveness of communication. So planning and assessing beforehand before we deliver a speech may result in a fruitful and sensible execution. When we deliver words, it will lead us to more understandable and more efficient way to deliver a statement or narrative that can be understood by the person you're talking to. Achieve conversational fluency. In this part, when we practice speaking any other languages, whether it is Filipino, English, or Spanish, when we practice, we tend to get fluent in it. No matter when we make mistakes, it is not a negative impact to down yourself, to not continue what you're doing, what you want to learn. It is a key to nurture more what you want to learn, a specific language. Last is modify text for audience and purpose. So modifying means we're changing the text, we're changing the context. Because if we make a statement and it never match the idea of the person you're talking to, then it would be a mismatch. It would be a mishap. So in order for us to understand each other, we must first modify, and we must change it to point out what's wrong and right between the conversation between the two. So that's all for me.
So hello, I am Natalie Katakutan and I'm going to continue discussing about the communicative competence. So let's start with the phrase communication is the key. We're very familiar with this phrase, right? We often hear it as a relationship advice. And yes, it is important that we know how to communicate well, not only in romantic relationship but also in school and workplace setting, as it is the key for better team collaboration and cooperation. And in that way, your team or you can be more productive. So, what is communicative competence? So, in the article of Shagian, she defined communicative competence as the ability of the speaker to express its literal meaning and to perform his intention in appropriate context. So that means that not because you are able to talk to someone, you can consider you can consider yourself you can consider yourself competent because it requires skill, and sometimes the meaning of what we intend is not aligned to the meaning to the meaning to what we convey. So next is the third component of communicative competence is social linguistic competencies. So it is the ability to communicate appropriately by using the right words, expressions, and attitude. So that means the nonverbal is part of this competence towards a specific topic, setting, and relationship. So um, we communicate differently to different people. Like for our friends, we talk limit limitless. Like we can talk about anything or joke around. But when we talk to older people, we tend to limit our words so that we would not sound rude. So, and social linguistic also varies in a culture. Like for example, in America, it is normal for them to call someone by their first name. But here in our country, we are encouraged to show respect by using po and opo or using terms such as ate, kuya, tito, tita, lolo, lola, like that. So, social linguistic, it is when you can understand and respect those social construct, and in that way you can choose language accordingly and make your point, and then you can express yourselves clearly. Next, the next one is the discourse competencies. So, it's simply defined as the ability of an individual to communicate in a given context. So, one scenario example of this one is when you can understand different texts. So different texts such as fiction, non-fiction, or any technical technical text. So the more text you understand, the more discourse competent you are. And the other example is it is when you can engage in any conversation. Like you can interject and engage in your thoughts and opinion in different topics such as political, religious, or any specific subject. So that's all, and I hope after discussing this topic is you can assess yourself on how competent you are in terms of communication.
Hello everyone. I'm Julius Bruno, and today I'm going to discuss World Englishes. Next slide, please. So, World Englishes refers to different forms and varieties of English used in various social-linguistic contexts in different parts of the world. So, in today's world, English has a greater spread over the globe than any other language in history, being used as the uh, primary medium of international and intercultural communication. Um, it isn't only one form or variety of English that is being used. So the plural Englishes emphasizes that the language belongs to those who use it as their mother tongue or as an additional language, whether in its standard form or in its localized variation. So sometimes people use or prefer, world English, global English, even globish or international English, but it has the same meaning. Next slide, please. So world Englishes includes at least three types of varieties. So for the first one, uh, those that are used as the primary language of the majority population of a country, such as Americans and British. Now, for the second one, varieties that are used as an additional language for intranational as well as international communication in communities that are multilingual, such as Indian, Nigerian, and Singaporean, and many more. For the third one, varieties that are used almost exclusively for international communications, such as Brazilian, Chinese, and German. So that's going to be all for us. Thank you everyone for listening. And this is our references, just for your information.
So for our takeaway, I will start. So my takeaway is the part in the communicative competence. There are many things that I don't know in that part, and frankly, I learned many things in their presentation.
For my part, it is also for cognitive competencies because the knowledge that I know in communication is shallow, just like the iceberg. From the top it seems small, but from the under it is big. So that is all.
So before I give my takeaway, I just want to address something. Apparently, I've made a mistake earlier. I forgot the last term on the competence part. It was discourse. Discourse pala yun. So moving on my takeaway is that the English part of Julius Bruno. We all know that English is an international language that we embody, in whatever country we may be in. And in speaking English, it is the most efficient way to understand and to construct a communication to someone who is living abroad. Not only living in abroad or here in the Philippines as well. So English is the international language and the most efficient way to construct a conversation between people. That's all.
So my take in accuracy versus fluency, I can say that uh, we should first prioritize learning fluency rather than being insecure on perfecting our grammar, because as long as um, your sentence are good enough to be understand, I think that would be enough.
So, for my takeaway, from what I have learned in the part in communicative competence is that from the word itself, communication, is the key. The more you can, or and the more you can understand than these different texts, the more discourse competence you have.
Okay, that's all from our group. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.